What's up, everybody, and welcome to another installment of the China Vlog series, number 8. This episode is going to be a little bit different. A few weeks ago, I submitted on Facebook a request for people to submit questions for me to answer, so today I'll be answering those on my walk to work. Hope you enjoy.
Damn.
Alright, question number 1 comes from my Aunt Melanie in Wisconsin. Jacob, when are you coming home next? I miss you. Well, Melanie, I miss you too. I left the US on July 6th, planning to come back from China on September 14th, so that'll be just over 2 months. As soon as I get back, I'm actually going to Italy for 2 weeks, leaving on September 21st, so I'm coming back just to leave again. This next one comes from Kira in Missouri. Is it hard to communicate while you're over there? Is it culturally awkward? What do people talk about? I would say for the most part, the people that I work with typically speak at least some degree of English. If I'm just out on the streets or anywhere else, I can usually get by with hand gestures and my very limited knowledge of Mandarin. I don't think it's culturally awkward, really. I'm a pretty, quiet, reserved person in general. Don't really say too much, so it's really not too much of an issue or awkward at all for me to just kind of sit there and listen to people talk and try and understand what they're saying. Alright, question 3 comes from my mother. Do you miss your mom's cooking? Of course. Easy question, no other commentary needed. Okay, a little bit of commentary. The thing that I especially miss is eating meat without having to eat around the bone with chopsticks. Just a nice fat chunk of meat is what I really want, and it's pretty hard to find. Also, Gino's Pizza. This next one is more of a statement than a question, but it comes from Colin in Iowa. Saddened by the lack of activity on Jay Stuckin's Snapchat. Just throwing that out there. Little explanation on that. Oh, scared the hell out of me. A little explanation on the Snapchat. Snapchat is blocked in China, along with several other American websites like Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. So that's the reason that I don't post on Snapchat very often. Trying to post a little more frequently lately after seeing that comment. Hope you noticed, Colin, but that is the reason why, that is the reason for my lack of activity on Snapchat recently. Question 5. My sister asks, do you miss me? I'm just kidding, Markel. Of course I miss you. Question 6 is another one from Melanie in Wisconsin, my Aunt Melanie. And it's a good one, so I might break it into a few different parts. First part, are the prices of things comparable between China and the US? Second part, do you feel safe? And lastly, how do you protect yourself? Alright, the first part on comparable prices between the US and China. I would say for the most part, for your everyday purchases, things are going to be cheaper here in China. An Uber or a Didi to the office is about 8 RMB, so a little over $1. I would say for breakfast, lunch, dinner, maybe costs $2 for a plate of meat and vegetables. Dinner may be a little more expensive, but I would say no more than $4 or $5. The price between a cup of coffee at Starbucks in the US and Starbucks in China is almost even. Starbucks is definitely more expensive than your local coffee shop here in China. They do, of course, have McDonald's and KFC, the reigning Western fast food restaurants here in China, as well as Pizza Hut. Pizza Hut in China is fantastic. Compared to the US, it's amazing. The crust is always hot, all of the toppings are fantastic, good amount of stringy cheese, My only complaint is the sauce. They're a little weak on the sauce, but you know, some things you just can't have everything perfect. The second part of Melanie's question was, do you feel safe and how do you protect yourself? Honestly, I have never really felt unsafe while I was in China. Even walking at night, so there's a story about my first night in China. To sum it up, I got to an abandoned part of town at midnight with 2 bags, didn't speak any English, didn't know where I was supposed to go, walked around for about 3 hours, barely seeing anyone until I finally got back to the hotel. Didn't even see cars on the street. It was very eerie. But anyway, even then I didn't feel unsafe while I was in China. I actually feel less safe walking around Kansas City. Yeah, anywhere in the US really. China just feels much safer. So for the second part of that question, how do you protect yourself? I don't really need to. I think the most that might happen is that in a larger urban area I might get pickpocketed, but other than that, there's no major street crime like we have in the US. I don't have to worry about someone coming out of the bushes here with a knife. I hope, knock on wood. Oh, that was stupid. Water all over the leaves. I'm a little bit bigger, taller than most of the people in China, so maybe that's a deterrent as well, but I just don't think that's really an issue, you know, being safe and protecting yourself like it is in the US. Question 7, another one from my mom. Anything interesting you would try to eat that you normally wouldn't? Oh, Mom. If you knew the things that I've tried to eat here. Let's see, salmon eggs, octopus, flying fish, chicken heart, chicken kidney, goose liver, pig kidney. What else do we have last weekend? Oh, chicken feet, of course. Yes, you heard me right. Chicken feet. Tofu. Tofu is something that I never really tried in the US. And soy milk. There's no dairy milk. I usually tell people not to tell me what it is until after I eat it, but sometimes it's just fun to know what it is beforehand. Number 8 is from Shelby. What American food do you miss the most, and do you miss having your own car? I do miss having my own car, actually, but I really do like the idea of mass public transportation, and I wish it was more popular in the US. Subway, bus, anything. Also, it's really cheap for me to take a DD and just have someone drive me. I think the most expensive trip I've had is like $6 for a half an hour DD, equivalent of Uber ride. So in that regard, I guess I don't really miss driving my own car. The other part, what American food do you miss the most? I might go with mashed potatoes and gravy. I can always just take a short trip to McDonald's and get a, quarter pounder. They also have this great burger that is a combination of a BLT and a cheeseburger. Fantastic. The menus in China for fast food are just slightly different than you would find in the US, and some of those little variations, some are terrible, okay? Some are fucking awful. There's a burger at McDonald's that has 2 links of German sausage and some weird spicy mustard on it. I had to try it because I was curious. I just kept seeing it, but it was bad. But number 9 comes from my boy Kyle. Kyle asks, apparently China is light years ahead of us in terms of renewables. Can you comment on this? I don't have any statistics, but I know last time I was here, when I took the high-speed train to Beijing, I did see a lot of wind turbines everywhere. And I know in May, or maybe last May, the last coal plant in Beijing was shut down. Beijing still gets power from coal plants in less strictly regulated areas like Mongolia or other outlying areas around Beijing, but it's at least a step forward to eliminating some of the pollution within the city of Beijing. Other than that, I can't really comment too much on the status of renewables here in China. This next one comes from Russ in Washington. What were your expectations when you first went to China versus now? And what is the thing that's the most different or weird in the US that would be considered normal in China? So when I first came here, I didn't really have much of an expectation. I didn't know very much about China, and as someone who's just curious and of course studied anthropology, I of course didn't want too much of a preconception before I came to China. I don't really know what the stereotype of China is because I tried not to have one before I came here, so can't really comment too much on that. One thing that I do notice now is that the idea that the government has control over a lot of your life, in a way that's true, but in day-to-day life, you're kind of free to do whatever you want as long as you're not breaking the laws. There's a lot of freedom in your day-to-day life to do whatever you want to do. Everyone kind of minds their own business, so that's really nice. The biggest thing that would be weird in the US that would be considered normal in China. After graduating university, most students go back to live with their family until they get married. The usual, I don't want to say typical because it doesn't apply to everyone, but the usual age that you're expected to be married by is 26. And I've heard from a few people that once they do reach 26, their parents start to pressure them and try and set up dates as a matchmaker to help them find a spouse. Where in the US, as soon as you turn 18, if you go to college, you're typically on your own. You might go back and visit your family on the weekends if it's a close drive. Might live with them after college if you're unable to find a job or trying to save some money. But for the most part, once you graduate from high school in the US, you're independent, you're on your own. Where in China, once you graduate high school, you're still part of the daily family life. There's a few people that I know that even though they're married and do have kids, their parents have come to live with them to kind of be like a babysitter, a caretaker for the children. So I'd say that family life is a lot more cohesive in China than in the US. Number 11 comes from Molly. Has your Chinese improved since you've been completely and totally absorbed into the culture? Yeah, my Chinese has definitely improved. This week I started actually taking an online class. I should have done it as soon as I got to China, but I just figured that I would pick it up in my day-to-day life, which, yeah, I picked up a few phrases, but for the most part I didn't really learn anything. So I've definitely learned a lot the last few days from taking this class. What has helped the most? I'm pretty good at getting around in taxis now. I can point left and right. Right is Youjuan, left is Zoujuan. Straight, 界行. Yeah, my pronunciation of Chinese is terrible. It's a tonal language, so each vowel has a different tone, and each one of those tones can mean something completely different. So as an example, there's a neutral tone, which would be like ma. There's a rising tone, which would be ma. There's I don't know what you would call it, but the third tone starts high, dips down, and then goes back up. So like ma. And then the last tone is a descending tone, so ma. So it's really difficult as a native English speaker who doesn't use tonal languages to kind of learn that and adapt, but I'm slowly catching on. Number 12 comes from Jelaine. Are you the tallest person there, and do they really eat cats? I would say that I'm in the top, maybe the top 10% of height here. Most people in China are generally short. I don't know what the average height is. I think in the US it's maybe 5'10", 5'11", so maybe in China it's 5'8", 5'9", something like that. So I'm definitely a little taller than most people. Do they really eat cats? No, that myth isn't true. No normal civilized person would eat cats. Well, disclaimer. Some people, you know, if you don't have anything else to eat, you gotta eat something. You can't just eat rice and vegetables all day. You have to have some sort of protein. So if that means that you don't have any money to buy meat from the grocery store and you have to eat cat, then you have to eat cat. It's just a way of life. Oh, and speaking of cats, Molly also asked if I had been to a cat cafe. The answer is no. I am not sure what a cat cafe is. It just sounds like not my thing. All right, thanks everyone for submitting your questions. I had a lot of fun answering them, even though it was a 40-minute walk. I didn't think it was going to be so hot at 7 a.m. I was thinking, oh, you know, it's 7 a.m. It'll be a little cooler than normal. It won't be too hot, but no. By the time I got to the office, I was drenched in sweat. Anyway, thanks for submitting your questions. I did have a lot of fun answering them. If you have any other questions about daily life in China, feel free to let me know in the comments below, down there. Also, feel free to tell your friends, hit that subscribe button so I can continue to bring you more interesting content from China or wherever else I might be. Have a good day.